Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Leeds series. The city of Leeds is one of the 5 metropolitan boroughs of West Yorkshire. 38 civil parishes lie within its boundaries. Which slice of the city are we seeing today? Okay, today for you in the city of Leeds, I've got one that should not be confused with a village in Newark and Sherwood. That's because they both have the same name. Now, where I'm beginning is on a bridge and it's over the River Wharfe. Let me show you the river. There it is. Now that's a very picturesque spot down there, and you'll see it if you stick around long enough into this video. And this bridge, this is Linton Bridge, and it links the village of Linton, where that van's just going, to the main village, the one that gives this parish its name, and that would be Collingham. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Collingham is a village and civil parish 2 miles southwest of Wetherby in West Yorkshire. It shares its parish boundaries with neighbouring Linton and a tiny hamlet called Compton. The village is at the junction of the A58 and A659 roads. It's separated from Linton to the north by the River Wharfe, and it's linked to it by Linton Bridge. It's also sited on a cycle route which we haven't seen since way back in Wakefield. That's because we're right at the edge of West Yorkshire, and the West Yorkshire cycle route circumnavigates the county. The A659 is the same turnpike road that we spoke about in Boston Spa, historically connecting Tadcaster to Otley. Here's another milestone for the fans of these out there. It's not a turnpike now, but transport is still good here. Collingham is served by the X98 and X99 bus services operated by First West Yorkshire between Leeds City Square and Wetherby Dayton Bar. Here we have CALSA, that's the Collingham and Linton Sports Association. Collingham and Linton Cricket Club play here, and it also has 3 indoor squash courts and a football pitch. Here's another view of the cricket club and CALSA from a footpath which leads from the A659 to Highcroft and then onto Millbeck Green. Let's have a bit of history while we walk. The name Collingham was first recorded in 1166. It's had a few spellings through time, often including a Y in place of the I. The name comes from Old English. The first element is the personal name Collar. That originated as a nickname deriving from Old English col, meaning coal, referring to black hair or a dark complexion. The suffix ingas denotes a group of associated people. This group name was then compounded with the Old English word ham, meaning settlement or homestead, and we can conclude Collingham is the settlement of the descendants of Collar. Collingham has lots of history. Some of it is not that pleasant, unfortunately. It's had problems with flooding and was affected badly in 2007. Millbeck Green was flooded, as was part of the A58. This is the stretch of water that caused the problems, Collingham Beck, which has a tendency to swell very quickly during heavy rain. We're heading for the centre of the village, much of which was demolished in the 1960s and 1970s and replaced with modern facilities. We're on the A58 here, adjacent to Millbeck Green. Our route takes a swing down Mill Lane between the A58 and the A659, and this passes the former Old Star pub, which is now a Tesco Express. I was surprised how busy this little link road is. Mill Lane offers us a closer look at Collingham Beck. Here it flows under the A659, which is carried by the listed Collingham Bridge. We'll be seeing this again later, but for now, we're veering away. We're heading for the village's only public house. There is a second pub to see though on this route, and that's in Linton. This was formerly known as the Half Moon Inn. The Half Moon is now known as Cromwell's, and that's likely due to Oliver Cromwell. It's believed he spent the night here after the Battle of Marston Moor. Now, all around the village you will find loads of these blue plaques. Mainly, they refer to people who lived in certain locations around the village, like William Gibson, for example, who was a publican. And that's not the only blue plaque that you can find close to here, because there's one here about Alfred Brown, born 1889, a porter. He served in World War I in the Machine Gun Corps and died as a prisoner of war in Germany in 1918. And he lived here with his 5 siblings, Half Moon Cottages. Okay, so where we are now, we're in the centre of Collingham. Now, Collingham is basically 2 streets. There's this one you can see in front of you, and one that's behind that, and they're linked together with a series of footpaths. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk down that way and turn, if I can get the camera just above this van, turn there to get onto the other street, and then sort of weave my way zigzag between the 2 streets before getting to the very end and then coming back and going down Church Lane. And that will take us towards the next major landmark, which is actually not in Collingham. So this is where the A659 runs into the A58. Remember from the Scarcroft episode a few weeks ago, the A58 was also a turnpike, so it's 2 for the price of 1 today, turnpikes wise. On the other side of the junction we have Old Star Garage, named as such because it's right next to the former pub. This is run by 2 friends with well over 30 years experience in the business. Between the 2 main streets are the village shops. These are located in Hastings Court and Elizabeth Court. Small modern precincts, these include a barber shop, a hairdresser's and an off-licence. There's also a fish and chip shop, a travel agency, a pharmacy, a delicatessen, an optician's, a pet shop, a beautician's, a dentist and a dry cleaner. The reason for the names of the 2 shopping precincts will become apparent towards the end of this video. Elizabeth Court also has the parish notice board in one corner, and you can mark this one off, scorekeepers. Adjacent is a small parade of shops containing a takeaway and the post office. These are listed as being on Main Street as opposed to being on Elizabeth Court. So there's quite a number of these blue plaques. There's another one here as well at 1 Fullerton Terrace for Anne Taylor, who lived here during World War I. I'm not going to film every single one because it would take up the entire video, but I'm sure there are plenty more dotted around Collingham in other places. Let's carry on. This rain is starting to get a little heavier, so I'm hoping and praying it goes away because my coat is in the car and it's quite a long way away. So I might be a drowned rat by the end of this one. Collingham Parish has 2 memorial halls, one in Collingham and one in Linton. Here's the former, over the road, sited next to Collingham Bowling Club. After using one of the connecting footpaths, we're on School Lane. Now, Collingham has a school, but it's no longer this building. This is the old school, which is now a private residence. The school isn't the only former building along School Lane of note either. Here, just yards away, a load more of these interesting blue plaques can be found, and one in particular stood out. That would be this one. This area was the site of the former Methodist chapel during World War I, and it was also artist Owen Bowen's studio. It's a row of houses now. Speaking of property, Collingham is an eclectic mix of Georgian, Victorian and 20th century housing. Housing around Wetherby Road is generally the oldest in the village. There's been no housing development on a notable scale in Collingham since Bryant Homes built some along Linton Road. Here's the GP surgery next, providing your basic NHS services. The main church is on the edge of the village on Wetherby Road. Collingham does have a Methodist chapel too. See the picture bit for that one, as the route doesn't pass it. Its dedication is to Oswald of Northumbria, an Anglo-Saxon saint. The church has Saxon origins and was rebuilt in the 15th century and restored and enlarged from 1840 to 1841. The tower was built in the 16th century and its clock was installed in 1891. The churchyard contains the grave of Major General James Gunter, who served in the Crimean War. Benjamin Amundsen, who died in 1867, was the vicar here for 29 years. He's also in the churchyard, and right next to the church we see the old vicarage. The new one is directly opposite this. We're now on Church Lane. Away to our left and out of shot is Glebe Field, which is an open green space. There's a footpath on the left a little further away back to the A58, but we head straight on. This takes us past the village tennis courts. This is certainly a village that's well served sports-wise. There's a golf club close by too, and Percy Shaw, a professional boxer in the 1930s, once lived here. Don't say it too loudly. The rain stopped. To the untrained eye, Church Lane is a dead end, but I knew differently. This is a narrow terrace street, generally speaking, but certainly one of Collingham's most characterful areas. Our route will now take us over Collingham Beck again before walking alongside it towards the River Wharfe. Now this part of the walk, unbeknown to me at the time, follows an old railway line. The line in question was the same one that passed through the village of Thorner. That would be the crossgates to Wetherby line, and Collingham had a station on it, Collingham Bridge. It was named after the bridge over the nearby beck to avoid confusion with Collingham Station in Nottinghamshire. It was operational between 1876 and 1964. At this point, the railway crossed the River Wharfe on a massive viaduct. It was demolished in 1965 when the railway was dismantled. On the way back later, we'll see where part of the station yard was. And here we are at the River Wharfe. It might look pretty, but it's dangerous at Collingham due to the undercurrents, which are prevalent around Linton Bridge and the former viaduct. Right, you remember the Burnley series and how Padiham had a beach. Well, this one has a beach as well. Look at this. How about this for a nice picturesque scenic spot on the River Wharfe? Awesome. Doesn't this look fantastic? There's a bridge over there. Now I'm going to be walking over that bridge in a moment. And also, opposite this, there's a golf club. Now I won't be able to go into the golf club and film anything there. But yeah, there's a golf club over there. I wonder how many golf balls have been lost in the River Wharfe down the years. So this is the Grade 2 listed Linton Bridge. It was built over the River Wharfe in the early to mid 19th century. It was closed for almost 2 years in December 2015 after being damaged by Storm Eva. Flood cracks appeared in the deck and its parapet sagged. Let's go up onto it through this rather lush part of Beck Wood. It's a steep climb and certainly not wheelchair friendly. Linton Bridge reopened again after repairs in September 2017. It would cost £5 million to repair. The main cause of the damage was that the ground underneath its piers had shifted the bridge. Once over Linton Bridge, we find ourselves in the village of the same name. Little is known of the early history of the Linton area, but it may well have been inhabited since 10,000 BC. Roman artifacts have been found here before, and in 1936 a Roman burial site was identified to the north of the village. Like Collingham, the village is also mentioned in the Domesday Book. The Anglo-Saxon place name means Flax Farm. There was a medieval chapel in the village at one time, possibly founded by the Percy family. They were landowners here. Okay, a little bit of a route problem. The golf club entry that you've just seen there, I thought was a public footpath to take me up to the top of Linton. Turns out it's not. So I was quickly looking on the map to see where the footpath is, because there is a footpath here, and I eventually found it. This just looks like a private driveway, but this is where I need to go. This will take me to the top of Linton, close to the Windmill Inn. I believe this is actually a byway. Either way, we can walk on it. It skirts the edge of the golf course built on Linton Ings, opened in 1910. The path leads to the Linton Memorial Hall in an arc shape. The architect William Alban Jones was responsible for several houses built in the arts and crafts style round the old village centre in the 1920s, and also for this memorial hall. Whilst Scarcroft might have Leeds' most expensive street, Linton is the richest village in not just the city but the entire county of West Yorkshire. It has many properties worth in excess of £1 million. With houses this grand, there have been some famous residents here. Notably, Owen Lattimore lived here in the 1960s while he was the first professor of Chinese at the University of Leeds. According to Kelly's Directory of 1893, Linton had 4 farms, a school, a pub and a manor house at that time. The latter of those 3 things is right here next to this wellhead. This is the much altered manor house, which dates from 1650. It's almost mansion-like in its appearance, although that's kind of in keeping with the vast majority of Linton's properties. So most of Linton's big mansion houses, the ones that are worth 7-figure sums, are down Northgate Lane, but it's a very linear part of the village and I'm heading back towards Collingham to make a circular walk. I have, however, found some examples of those mansions on the internet and they'll feature in today's picture bit. Here's one for the fingerpost fans out there. This is an old Yorkshire West Riding sign complete with the associated roundel at the end of Northgate Lane. Linton also has an old red telephone box and the book exchanges are back in the Leeds series at last, which is good to see. The last one we saw was in Scarcroft. There's no school these days in Linton and the village no longer has a place of worship. Once upon a time though, this building was both. It's now a private residence. There's also no shops in Linton, although as we saw in Collingham, the area is pretty well served in that regard. Next up is this little green area, which is located opposite the Windmill Inn. The only pub in Linton, the Windmill Inn, is some 460 years old. It's a popular traditional public house and has an excellent reputation locally. Quite often, according to its website, it has the privilege of welcoming some famous faces from popular Yorkshire television programmes. I imagine some may even live here. So a little bit of information from a local who's just stopped me. He lives in one of these houses on the left, you can see here. And apparently the house next to where he lives, Winston Churchill lived there for a while. He said for one night, but I think it's probably going to be more than that. If any Linton residents can confirm or deny that, please do let me know. But yeah, Winston Churchill apparently was a resident in this village for a time. All that's left for us to do now is to cross Linton Bridge again and head back into Collingham to complete the route. This has been quite the gorgeous, picturesque walk all in all. So much so, I couldn't help but take just one last shot of the River Wharfe from Linton Bridge on the way back. Beautiful part of Leeds, and you're lucky to have this on your doorstep, local people. Linton Road takes us past the main car park for the picturesque Beck Wood. This used to be Collingham Bridge Station's coal yard. It's now a managed wildlife area. The former railway aligns with Linton Road. Opposite us here is Kingfisher Reach, which is the aforementioned area of new builds off Linton Road which were built by Bryant Homes. Our last major landmark is a school. We're in Leeds, so it's no surprise this is Lady Elizabeth Hastings Church of England Primary School. That name is fast becoming a channel favourite, I'm telling you. It certainly explains the names of both Elizabeth Court and Hastings Court, the 2 shopping precincts. We're back on the A659 after 2 hours walking around this lovely part of West Yorkshire. Always good to see a village that looks after itself. Check out these flowers. Okay, I'm about done now with Collingham and Linton, and I'm heading back to the car which is parked off the A659 on Lower Langwith. It's funny, when I saw the name Langwith I instantly thought of Derbyshire and Bolsover. I don't know whether there's a connection between the two. You never know, there could well be. I don't know. Right, it's time for me to give you guys today's picture bit. Let's see what I found for you here in Collingham. And there you go, that's the parish of Collingham. Now the only one that's left up here in the northeast of the city now is Wetherby, and that one could be a while in the making because it's so big I'll need to properly plan a route out. Could well be the last one I do in the Leeds series, watch this space. But for now, this has been the parish of Collingham, and I've been Andy, otherwise known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.